Well, hello and welcome again to our webinar, How Inadequate Mobile Technology is Costing Your Firm Money and Time. Please take a moment to look at the chat area in the lower right corner of your screen. You will see a drop-down menu with options next to the word Send To. If you have any technical problems today, please send a chat message to host. If you have questions or comments for our presenter, chat to all panelists. And if you have comments for the entire audience, chat to all attendees. A recording of this webcast will be available tomorrow, and we will send all registrants an email with the proper link. The sponsor for today's webcast is Xero, a technology company that offers the only mobile-first AI-powered solutions engineered to help law firms achieve operational excellence. Xero brings the power of artificial intelligence to one of the legal industry's most intractable problems, email management. Today's presenter is Ryan Stedman, Chief Revenue Officer of Xero. Ryan leads Xero's vision and execution for growth, expanding its global footprint and ensuring a world-class customer experience. He has over 2 decades of experience delivering disruptive and emerging technology to professional services organizations worldwide and a deep subject matter expertise across a wide spectrum of essential business processes. I'll now pass the ball to Ryan, and we will begin today's webinar. Ryan.
Carolyn, thank you for that introduction. I am appreciative. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today's session. We really look forward to spending the next 30 to 40 minutes with all of you on the call. There are a handful of pretty compelling and interesting themes to cover over the next 30 minutes or so. By way of the overview and learning objectives, today's session is not just about recognizing how mobile technology has traditionally been pretty inadequate for many users, mostly professional users, but also the impacts on why this is costing your firm both money and time. It's probably costing a little bit of morale as well as a byproduct. Quite apart from legacy and user-unfriendly mobile applications, there's been an abundant lack of what we would call psychological rewards or dopamine hits when interacting with professional-grade, non-consumerized applications on your mobile device. Things like time capture, email management, finding documents in your document management system, collaboration tools, so on and so forth. Generally, it's very difficult for anyone on planet Earth to get excited about email management or time entry on mobile devices, particularly if there's no psychological reward or rush of dopamine. It's really hard for users to change their behavior. So that's really what this session is about, is to introduce a couple of concepts related to design thinking and, in essence, what would help your users change their behavior organically. Millennials, by the numbers, we are aware that almost half of practicing lawyers amongst almost 400 of the largest US firms are millennials, who, generally speaking, practically all grew up with some kind of mobile device in their hands. Some of them were Nokias, some of them were Blackberries, some of them were iPhones and iPads or Android devices. And the task we're generally putting off today isn't always the one that you hate. It's generally the one where there's simply no guarantee of a cognitive reward. If you look at the proliferation of consumerized applications, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, a whole host of them are out there. They've been designed specifically to give our Paleolithic brain some kind of a dopamine rush. And the challenge with legal technology vendors is that we haven't quite got that right. And as a result, there's a significant opportunity there for lawyers who embrace new, contemporary and refreshing technology that they typically discover through their own consumer mobile applications to become a lot more efficient and effective. Almost three quarters, in fact, of millennials think that a work from home or remote working policy is basically a hygiene factor when embarking on their career aspirations. Almost 100% indicated that some kind of contemporary technology is one of the most important aspects of a professional home. And more than half of them believe, and it's a belief that I'm pretty sure most of you on the call would share if you have a dishwasher at home, is that some form of AI or machine learning can certainly automate the routine and boring tasks. And as a software developer and engineering company, we do recognize that any sort of behavioral change is not easy. In fact, it's incredibly hard. So what does the potential of mobile technology bring to our tribe, to our industry in the legal community? The potential is substantial. We all have some form of emotional or practical connection to our mobile devices in the form of voice with loved ones or colleagues and clients, or in the form of data, either in the form of photographs of family, friends, or events, or more specific to our domain, in the form of email, in the form of documents, in the form of collaboration tools, or everyone's favorite, in the form of mobile time entry and email management. It's really, really, really difficult to get excited about managing your inbox or constructing time cards so that you can bill clients. The number of interruptions that we're faced throughout our days, both personally and professionally, as a result of mobile applications, as a result of distractions, has a direct correlation to our ability to be super productive. The other thing that has a direct impact to our productivity is the lack of a user-friendly, or what we call a seamless experience, when users are interacting with their business applications on a mobile device. And as a result of that lack of user-friendly experience or a seamless experience, it results in operational inefficiencies, because frankly, where the psychological reward or dopamine hit is absent, it's very difficult to get enthusiastic or excited about spending time buried inside of your inbox on your mobile device. So what does the current state of mobile technology look like at law firms? It's far from being a catalyst to promote any form of genuine, authentic productivity. It's very far from promoting operational efficiency, or ultimately what we would describe as the nirvana of a change in behavior. If you can build something behind an application that your professionals have familiarity and trust with, that has a direct correlation to their use or adoption of that application. And despite there being more than 1 billion connected devices on the planet, the traditional software companies have done a pretty mediocre job at building software that ultimately delights users. And as a result of the inability to delight users by way of the consumer experience that we have, none of this should be lost on anyone. There's a remarkable productivity and profitability drain. And this is what it looks like by the numbers. It's law firm profitability, and again, it's law firm profitability. The final topic here is law firm productivity, which leads directly back to law firm profitability. There's a sense of the anxiety and stress that professionals have in our industry, because there's an overwhelming desire from your clients, from law firm clients, to deliver more value with the same or fewer tools available to execute on delivering value and providing, value-based pricing to law firm clients. The data that you have on the screen right now is the result of Legal Executive Institute's Law Firm Business Leaders Report in 2019 and 2020. And there just seems to be an overwhelming need for our colleagues and professionals in the industry to do more. And it's having a direct impact on the bottom line for law firms, because you simply cannot be connected 24/7, even though clients are generally expecting us to be as such. So for those of you who are deeply fascinated by email filing, it's a deeply fascinating and wonderfully rewarding task if you're living in the 15th century. Operationally, though, it contributes to severe revenue leakage in the form of operational and administrative friction throughout the life cycle of matters. Nobody went to law school expecting to remain entirely compliant with regards to filing emails into their respective repositories, whether that be in Outlook or whether it be in a firm's document management system. And if you map the amount of time spent and calculate the amount of time throughout the tasks and activities for filing of emails and figuring out where those emails need to be moved to, where they need to be filed to, in isolation, it may not appear like an awful lot of time, but collectively, it contributes significantly to what we regard as revenue leakage. And that's just email filing. Those micro decisions are better placed for a machine to do that on your behalf, where you're removing some of the cognitive friction or cognitive drain. And once again, it may take a fraction of a millisecond to figure out where that email should be moved to. But we all generally live inside of our inboxes throughout a large portion of the day. And if you can remove the amounts of micro decisions that need to be made and hand that off to a better engine, or in other words, a machine learning or AI-based engine inside of your inbox, that's really a pretty good place to remove some of the manual friction involved with making those decisions. The next area of automation is mobile time capture. Again, if you consider the lack of psychological reward and the amount of time and effort it takes to construct a time card, or in fact reconstruct a time card, several hours, several days, several weeks after the fact, it has a profound impact on revenue leakage again. So one of the design goals that Xero had set out on was to streamline and automate and passively create an engine that does a lot of these kinds of tasks and activities for the user right on their device without needing to tap a keyboard 7 times to produce a time entry, or without needing to bird pick through each one of your individual emails and move them into their corresponding folder. The numbers speak volumes. And again, in isolation, if you're to consider 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day of downtime where you're dealing with the administrative management of a matter, it has a direct correlation, again, to a loss in productivity. This slide represents generally what revenue leakage may look like based on your hourly rate. Hourly rate is represented beneath the hourly rate column, and the annual value of leaked time per timekeeper per hour across the lifespan of a year is pretty eye-opening, when all that it requires is a simple introduction of an organic behavioral change inside of an application. And that application, in this particular instance, is that of email, where inside of that email application, the ability to seamlessly, automatically, and passively capture time is available to users, so they don't need to reconstruct or interrupt other other tasks and activities that are genuinely billable for them. The same would apply to email filing, email management. So in a few minutes, we're going to have a look at that application, and we're going to go through a handful of scenarios where we can demonstrate the removal of that operational friction as part of managing some of the matters on your mobile device. It's become really obvious that the ability to implement not just a business continuity plan as a result of recent events, but also a plan to genuinely serve a work-life balance without jeopardizing the fiscal health is a key ingredient to sustainability, not just as a society, but also as an organization or as a law firm that wants to attract and retain the best talent that there possibly is. As a result of introducing contemporary and refreshing technology and removing a lot of the administrative friction involved with the general life cycle of clients and matters, it means you're going to have people that are engaged, motivated, morale is high, they have technology that helps them perform their functions in the organization. And remote working is a hygiene factor. And no one really is immune to this reality. We've had some recent releases around some of the larger firms and the significance of something that has a significant impact on the potential operational and financial risk of any industry. A very brief timeline so that we could describe the impact of technology on the user. Communication really became on demand in around 97 with Outlook and Exchange. BlackBerry introduced the concept of email in your pocket. And we saw the spike in the interest in the ability to simply be more productive, generating more billable hours by interacting with your mobile devices, both by way of voice, phone calls, and the ability to assign client matter information to email correspondence. 7 to 8 years later, BlackBerry lost the signal, and iOS devices became far more prevalent and mainstream. But unfortunately, for a lot of legal tech developers and engineers, there were and continue to be some restrictions around how much you can capture on a mobile device. Xero commenced operations in 2014, and it's taken us a little over 3 years to build a mobile email application that looks like, behaves like, and has very similar characteristics to Apple Mail. We're going to spend the next 5 to 7 minutes or so having a look at how this may impact the day in the life of a typical lawyer. So I'd like to introduce Xero. You'll no doubt draw your own conclusions. We're going to start a live demonstration in a minute or two. But in the back of your mind, I'd like to ask you to consider some of the areas of operational excellence that your firm and your colleagues aspire to. Profitability is certainly one. So how can I remove the manual involvement of constructing time cards when it comes to the one application that we probably spend the most time in? Email correspondence with clients is certainly defensible, it's substantiated, and it's a genuine form of billable activity. Often, when you are out on the road or traveling and you're interacting with client-related email on a mobile device, you need to consider the client, the matter, the narrative. There are a lot of micro manual decision-making processes after the fact that you then need to reconstruct. And that has, again, another impact on your levels of productivity. There's compliance. The potential for misaddressing an email and sending it to the wrong John or the wrong Wendy. The impact that that potentially has on your reputation, let alone the risk associated with that error or potential error. So we've built an engine that helps correct users from sending misaddressed information or misaddressed emails. And of course, the security component. Everything that you're going to see with regards to this email application on a mobile device takes place on the device. So there's no requirement for any back-end infrastructure or anything in the cloud. So with that in mind, I would like to share the application with you. You'll notice on the bottom right-hand side is my mobile email client. Immediately upon launching that, you should see what looks familiar to you. You'll see an inbox. The one difference between the Apple iOS client, or Outlook for that matter, is the assistant button at the very bottom of the screen. We're going to pick on 3, maybe 4 use cases so you can get a real sense of how a user would natively and organically trust the application because it resembles something which they're already used to. I'm going to pick on Amelia Biscaro, very first email at the top of my inbox. I'm going to open up that email, and immediately what you'll observe is that it's capturing the amount of time that I'm spending interacting with this email. That timer is capturing not just the amount of time that I'm spending interacting with this email, but it's also capturing the activity type. And it's the activity type that once again removes a lot of the manual data entry or frustration for users when it comes time to construct a time card. In this example, what I'm simply going to do is hit the reply button. I'll just include some test dummy data. And without interrupting my workflow, I'm simply going to tap on the send button on the top right-hand side. That email has now been sent. All the while, the time has been captured, as well as the activity. And I'll demonstrate what that transaction looks like in a couple of minutes. So that's example number 1. If I now wanted to move this email into its corresponding folder, I could simply swipe left to right. I'll then have a suggested folder as to where that email should go, and I'm going to select Davis Wallace. That email has now been moved. The second example I'm going to pick on is Sam Lundberg. I'll open up this email. Once again, you'll start becoming familiar with what's going on the screen. The second use case, I'm going to hit the reply button, and I'm going to introduce a new recipient. I'm going to make up a fictitious email address here. I'll type in slundberg@wikileaks.org. And you'll notice what just happened. The font color changed from blue to red. The reason it changed from blue to red in the first instance is because slundberg@wikileaks.org is not part of the law firm or the organization. He or she is not part of the life cycle of this matter or has never been seen to be part of the life cycle of this previous matter, or that individual isn't in your contacts. Often, however, you do need to introduce outside counsel, expert witness, or anyone who may be a new party to this matter. I'm going to continue with this workflow. I'm going to tap on send, but before it goes out the front door, you'll notice that I have a secondary warning informing me I'm about to send this to slundberg@wikileaks.org. In this instance, I am going to continue with this workflow, and that email will then get sent to that recipient. So those are some of the more traditional use cases and how we would interact with our inbox. I'm now going to move to the assistant feature, and this is where the power and the automation of Xero is with a mobile email client. When I tap on Assistant, you'll notice that I'm then presented with two features. The first is the time report, and the second is Move to Folder. I'm going to talk about Move to Folder. Move to Folder allows the user to move last week's messages, or the last 30 days messages. That's a configuration item. When I tap on Move to Folder, you'll notice that Xero is calculating predictions, and it's found 375 messages in my inbox where there is a single prediction based upon where this email could be moved to. As I scroll further down, you'll notice that the blue banners represent the Outlook folders. And once I'm ready to move all of these emails directly into their corresponding folders, all that a user would simply need to do is tap on Move All. I am going to show you what that looks like in a brief moment. Often, however, users may not be quite ready to move these emails into their corresponding folders. So a user has a few options. They can swipe right to left. They can change where that email gets moved to. And if I tap on Change, you'll notice that I then have access to all of my other folders in Outlook. Presumably, some of these folders would already be linked or connected to the firm's document management system, in which case we support that. We also coincidentally support direct filing into document management systems. In any event, I'm going to select David Kofi, and that email will now get moved, or that at least that email will get moved to that folder, but I did have the option to change where it ought to get moved to. Alternatively, I have the option to postpone moving this message. Perhaps I'm not finished reviewing that email or considering that email. And if I tap on Postpone, it'll remove that email from the batch move process, and it will reappear the following day. The third variation is simply to tap on Don't Move. That email, if I simply don't want to have that email appear in any future suggestions, I can remove that email from that process in its entirety. The alternative is to long press, and you'll notice that the screen dynamically shifts left to right, and radio buttons now appear adjacent to each of those emails. I can go through a handful of them, pick the corresponding emails that I want to move to the Capital Guardian folder, and as I scroll further down, you'll notice that other folders will appear. And once I'm ready to move these emails, I can tap on the Move To. If I am, however, ready to now move all of these 358 messages in my inbox, these represent the subfolders in Outlook. And let's imagine for a second, I want to move all of the emails into their corresponding folders. I simply tap on the Move All button, and I can move all 358 messages, and they've now been moved. I have 5 seconds or so to undo that in the event that I am having second thoughts on some of those emails, but that's generally the automated process for users. No longer do you need to spend several hours on a Sunday afternoon or half an hour throughout the day, each day, moving those emails. The final topic on the assistant feature is the time report. I'm going to generate some dummy data here for a brief moment. Okay, so Xero automatically collects transaction data, time entries that are automatically, passively, and contemporaneously captured. Xero captures the date. Xero creates a draft narrative by way of the activity type. So this first example is reviewed and responded to message. Xero strips out the subject, and it also captures the client or the recipient that you sent that email to. And of course, it also captures the duration. If we look at an example by way of a different activity type, reviewed a message. So Zero is capturing what we call haptics, how you're interacting with your device at a gesture level. It's constructing a draft narrative, and it's at this point that transactions are captured, aggregated, and they can be exported into a time entry system. And it's at that point that the user will have an opportunity to treat the narrative, edit the narrative, assign phase task activity codes, assign client matter information, so on and so forth. So there's an awful lot of revenue locked up in mobile devices as a result of just general globalization and movement of individuals. The final topic is this filter on the bottom left-hand side of the screen. As I open that up, you'll notice that a user has the ability to filter their emails by importance, attachments flagged, and also importantly by sender. By importance, we'll recalibrate my entire inbox based on my activity over the last, let's say, 3 days. You'll notice that Philip Cronin now is at the very top of my inbox, followed by Deborah, Daniel, Elizabeth, and Jack. The reason those individuals now surface to the very top of my inbox is because I, as a user, have interacted with those individuals far more frequently and far more substantively than anyone else in my inbox over the last 3 days. And we're able to measure and capture how an individual interacts with their emails, all of which that information is stored on the device. So just to be abundantly clear, Zero is not capturing that data as an organization, it's the application. And Zero is resorting the individual's inbox based on how they have been interacting with those recipients throughout the last 3 days or 1 week. It just helps remove some of the email anxiety, and it draws a line between those emails which seem important versus less important. On the bottom left-hand side again, if I go back to the filter, and if I sort my inbox by sender, you'll notice again, my inbox is sorted chronologically, not alphabetically. So it's at this point that if I want to recall an email from, let's say, Sam Lundberg, I now have access to all of Sam's emails, as opposed to having to endlessly scroll through my inbox looking for that one email buried in a haystack. Let me pick on Elizabeth Pyle, and again, you'll notice that I am removing a lot of the friction involved with email management on a mobile device. Okay, back to our PowerPoint. So that essentially concludes our session today on the potential of mobile technology, and also just an observation around how mobile technology has traditionally been inadequate. I'd like to hand back over to Carolyn or Bernie, and we'd be happy to take any questions and offer some responses to those questions.
Thank you, Ryan. I have not received any questions at this time. I'll give it just another minute. If anyone has any questions they would like to submit, we do have a few more moments for Ryan to open that up to some questioning. Again, you can chat the questions to all panelists if you have a question for Ryan. In the meantime, thank you, Ryan, for all of that information. We do apologize to any attendees who had some audio issues early on in today's webinar. Again, there will be a full recording of today's webcast available tomorrow. We will email out a link with that proper information so that you can access that recording. Again, we know that your time is extremely valuable, so we do apologize for any audio issues you may have experienced early on. But again, thank you, Ryan, for all of that really valuable information, and all attendees can access the information tomorrow with the link that we send. We do have one question that came in from Kyla. It says, how does Zero work with the document management system? If Ryan, you want to address that.
Sure. thank you for the question. So we have an integration with a number of document management systems. So we have a REST API, and we have the ability to integrate with iManage or NetDocuments. And as a result of that integration, users have the ability to file emails either individually as part of their existing email workflow, or they have the ability to batch file them en masse based on the individual's previous filing and email behavior. So would be very happy to explain that in more detail if you'd like. For those document management systems that we don't yet have a direct integration with, presumably your ability to link your Outlook folders to a document management system is also the result of an integration that we have with Exchange. And once the process of moving emails into those respective folders in Outlook has taken place, it is then the document management system that has the ability to link to those emails and move them into their appropriate client matter workspaces inside of the DMS. So again, just removing some of the manual requirements or the manual decisions that users have to go through to move those emails into their workspaces.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan, for that information and all of the information today. Again, this concludes today's webinar, and we will send out an email tomorrow with the link for a full recording as well as the slides of today's webinar. Thank you, everyone, for your time, and thank you for sharing that information, Ryan. And please join us for future webinars in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Carolyn. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ryan. Bye-bye.